No one tells you these 7 signs make you a top 1% dark chosen one. There's something that's never talked about, not by spiritual influencers, not in self-help books, not even in the ancient texts we revere. It's a knowing so deep and so hidden that only those who carry it sense its weight before they even have the words to name it. Maybe you've always felt like you were watching the world instead of living in it. Maybe you felt like your pain didn't match your life circumstances, or like your emotions were too big for this reality. Maybe you've been called intense, too much, too quiet, too different, and you've internalized that, thinking something must be wrong with you. But what if I told you that everything you've felt, everything you've suffered, everything that has made you feel like you're on the outside looking in, is actually proof that you're among the top 1% of the most rare, powerful, and necessary beings on this planet? Not in the way society defines power, but in the way the soul recognizes truth. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are a dark chosen one, and not just any kind. You are the rarest kind, the kind that doesn't even know it yet, the kind that the world desperately needs but also fears, because you carry something ancient, untamed, and uncontainable. The first sign that you're part of this top 1% lies in how your pain has shaped you. I don't mean the kind of pain people talk about casually. I mean soul-deep, bone-cracking, identity-shattering pain that came without reason, without justice, and without warning. You faced losses that made no sense, betrayals that cut too deep, and moments where you questioned why you were even alive. But instead of becoming bitter, something strange happened. You became more sensitive, more perceptive, more attuned to the invisible layers of reality. That's not coincidence. That's activation. The top 1% of dark chosen ones are forged in suffering, not because life is cruel, but because their mission demands a level of empathy, resilience, and spiritual sight that can only be born in the fire. You didn't just survive your pain, you metabolized it into wisdom. And that's what makes you dangerous to the systems built on illusion. You can't be fooled, you can't be programmed, and you can see what others deny.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The second sign is that you've never truly belonged anywhere. Not fully. Not in your family, not in school, not in careers, not even in spiritual circles. You've tried to blend in, to adapt, to play the part. But there's always been a voice inside that said, this isn't it. That quiet, relentless ache of misalignment is not because you're lost. It's because you were never meant to belong to systems that were never built for souls like yours. You don't fit because you're here to dismantle what does. You're not here to assimilate. You're here to awaken. And the paradox is, the more you try to be normal, the more your soul resists. That resistance is sacred. It's your inner compass. Third, you're haunted by a sense that something bigger is calling you, even if you have no idea what it is. You've felt it since childhood, an invisible thread pulling you towards something mysterious and unfinished. You can't explain it. You've tried to ignore it, but it never goes away. It shows up in your dreams, in synchronicities, in moments of silence, when the world fades and you feel the weight of something ancient resting on your shoulders. That's not fantasy. That's memory. Soul memory. The top 1% of dark chosen ones are seeded with missions that are dormant until triggered. And the trigger is often suffering, isolation, or a spiritual breakdown. When everything falls apart, the mission wakes up. Fourth, you've always had a strange relationship with power. You see through authority. You question everything. You don't trust what most people trust, not because you're paranoid, but because you see the cracks. You know when someone is lying even if they don't. You feel manipulation in your body like a sickness. You sense energy shifts that others are blind to. You've likely been gaslit for this, told you're crazy, dramatic, negative. But deep down, you know you're not. You simply see too much. You read people through their energy, not their words. That's not a flaw. That's spiritual technology. And it's part of what makes you a top-tier dark chosen one. Your inner compass is too sharp to be tricked. Fifth, you often experience extreme highs and lows, emotional, energetic, spiritual. You go through cycles of deep depression followed by bursts of clarity and power. You descend into darkness only to rise with visions and insight. These are not mood swings. These are recalibrations. You are being tuned by forces beyond the mind. You are being shaped into a vessel that can hold multidimensional truth. Most people are linear. You are cyclical. And in those cycles, you evolve at a rate that others can't understand. That's why you outgrow people, identities, even entire lifetimes in just a few years. You're not unstable, you're mutating into who you were always meant to be. Sixth, you attract chaos, but not because you're reckless. It's because your energy destabilizes anything false. When you step into a room, secrets surface. When you speak, people feel seen, and often that terrifies them. You've noticed how people project onto you, attack you, or idolize you without really knowing you. It's because your presence activates their shadow. You don't have to do anything. You just are. And that being is a mirror that reflects what others are hiding. This is why people either love you or fear you, often both. But the truth is, you're here to do exactly that, to shake things, to break illusions, to awaken dormant truths. And finally, the seventh sign, you've tried to walk away from your path more times than you can count. You've begged to be normal. You've tried to numb it, deny it, forget it. But the calling always returns, stronger, louder, more precise. That's because your mission isn't optional. It's encoded into your being. You are here to be a disruptor of unconsciousness, a transmitter of shadow wisdom, a bridge between worlds. Even when you forget, the mission remembers, and it won't let you go. So now I ask you, what if all the things you've tried to fix about yourself were never flaws but signs? What if your pain, your depth, your intensity were the very proof that you are among the rarest souls on this planet? What if you are not just different, you're chosen? The sacred power you've been hiding, and how it changes everything when you finally use it. There is a hidden current running through your life, something sacred and electric, just beneath the surface of everything you do. You've felt it, haven't you? The sense that something within you is waiting to be unleashed, not an ego-driven ambition, but an untamed force, raw and divine, like a sleeping dragon in your gut. You've had glimpses of it in moments when you were pushed to the edge, when you were betrayed and didn't break, when you stood in your truth, and the whole room shifted, when you spoke words you didn't know you had, and they struck like lightning. That's not weakness. That's not emotion. That is sacred power. But here's the truth no one tells you: most people will never access this power. They're terrified of it. They suppress it, but you were born to claim it. Because when a real dark chosen one finally stops hiding their power, the entire reality around them begins to mutate, and nothing is ever the same again. You've probably been conditioned to fear your own strength, told you're too intense, too emotional, too passionate, too much. So you learn to shrink, to dim your light, to play small. But spiritual power isn't about being soft and palatable. It's about being true, and truth is often sharp. It cuts, it pierces, it liberates. That's what your presence does. You walk into a space and the masks start to fall. People feel naked around you, unsettled, exposed. Not because you're trying to do anything, but because your energy is aligned with something ancient, something real, and that alignment disrupts everything fake. That's your gift, and that's your responsibility. You've been hiding your power not because you're afraid of failure, but because you're afraid of what will happen when you finally let it all out. What happens when you stop tolerating what drains you? What happens when you draw lines that don't bend? What happens when you speak the truth that no one else will say out loud? You already know. People will leave. Situations will collapse. Your old life may fall apart. But here's the deeper truth. The life that falls apart was never yours to begin with. It was built on compromise, on survival, on versions of you that were never real. When a dark chosen one reclaims their sacred power, they don't just change their life. They change the frequency of the space they occupy, like a tuning fork that forces everything else to recalibrate or retreat. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you told the full truth, not the filtered, spiritualized version, but the raw, unedited reality of what you feel, what you see, what you know? When was the last time you allowed your power to pour through you without apology? Most of us have never done it, not fully, because we're afraid of what will become. But what if that becoming is exactly what the world needs now? Not more light workers chanting affirmations while avoiding their shadow, but real, grounded, embodied souls who walk through fire and come out radiating something unshakable. You see, your sacred power isn't flashy. It isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It moves in silence, through presence, through intention, through energy. You've probably noticed how people come to you when they're lost, how strangers confess things to you, how animals and children are drawn to you. That's not random. That's resonance. They sense the frequency. They feel the depth. They feel the space inside of you that has been carved out by pain, by loss, by transformation. That space is now a portal, a gateway. And when you finally choose to own it, to stand in it, to live from it, everything changes. The top 1% of dark chosen ones don't seek power. They embody it. They don't need validation because they've already been validated by the universe through the initiations they've survived. Every collapse, every heartbreak, every ego death was a stamp of authenticity. You've earned your power, and now it's time to wield it not with arrogance, not with force, but with presence, with stillness, with a gaze that says, I see through you, and a heart that says, I will not abandon myself to keep you comfortable. And here's the wild part: once you activate your sacred power, your external reality begins to restructure itself. People who once drained you disappear. Opportunities that align with your frequency appear out of nowhere. Your body starts to heal. Your intuition becomes razor sharp. You stop chasing and start magnetizing, because power doesn't chase, it attracts. And you were never meant to hustle for your worth. You were meant to radiate it. So what happens when you finally use your power? You become a living transmission. You don't just talk about awakening, you are the awakening. You don't just teach transformation, you trigger it. You don't just survive the darkness, you carry the codes that guide others through it. And that's why you've suffered. That's why you've been broken down. Because you were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to be embodied truth. So I ask you now, with all the fire in my soul, what are you still afraid of? Who are you still shrinking for? What illusion are you still maintaining at the cost of your own power? These are not small questions. These are soul questions. And the moment you answer them honestly is the moment you stop hiding. The world does not need more light. It needs more truth. And you, as a top 1% dark chosen one, are that truth. Not in theory, not in fantasy, in embodied reality. The unseen realm you're connected to, and why it's been guiding you all along. There's a reason you've always felt like you were being watched, not in a paranoid way, but in a sacred, intimate, almost eerie sense. You've felt it in the quiet moments, in the space between thoughts, in the way the wind moves when you're alone, in the repeating symbols that show up just when you're about to give up. That feeling, that presence, it's real. You've never been alone, not for a second. You are deeply, irrevocably connected to a realm that most people don't even believe exists. And the reason you've always felt different, seen patterns others don't, or heard whispers no one else hears, is because you're not just spiritual. You're a conduit, a bridge, a living link between this world and one that exists just beyond the veil of perception. And the more you awaken, the thinner that veil becomes. Most people live in a loop, bound by the physical, reacting to what they can see, touch, and prove. But you, your soul, came with a different blueprint. You were born with your antenna already tuned to the unseen. That's why you've always felt things before they happened. Why you've had dreams that felt more real than waking life. Why you've walked into rooms and instantly known the energy without anyone saying a word. You're not imagining it. You're not crazy. You're sensitive because you're connected. And that sensitivity is not your weakness. It's your superpower. But here's where it gets deeper. The unseen realm isn't just a place of angels and light. It's layered, complex, wild. There are forces that guide and forces that test. You've probably felt both. The moments where synchronicity floods your life and you feel carried by grace, and the moments where everything falls apart and you feel like something is watching not to hurt you, but to see if you'll rise. These aren't punishments. They're initiations. Because the beings on the other side, the ones who've been guiding you, they don't see you as fragile. They see you as sacred. And sacred beings are not coddled. They are carved. You've likely felt the presence of guides, ancestors, guardians. You may have heard them in meditation or sensed them in dreams. Maybe you've doubted it. Maybe you've dismissed it, but deep inside, you've always known. The guidance has been subtle, never forcing, always nudging. Through songs, numbers, a stranger's words at the perfect time, a book falling off a shelf, a whisper that says, turn left instead of right. You've been led. But here's the twist, they can only guide. They cannot walk your path for you. That's your sacred task. That's why you have free will. That's why the tests come. Because it's not enough to be connected, you must embody the frequency you came from. And that, my friend, is where most people stop. They feel the connection but never claim the responsibility. You don't have that luxury. When you ignore the unseen, your life starts to collapse. Doors close. Energy drains. You feel lost. Why? Because you're going against the current of your own soul. You're denying the very forces that are trying to elevate you. And they won't let you stay asleep. Not anymore. So let me ask you something that only a top 1% dark chosen one will fully understand. Have you ever felt like you were part of something much, much bigger, but no one around you could see it? Like you were born into a world that forgot its own magic, and you were sent here to remind it? That feeling isn't an illusion. That's your task. You are the reminder, the anchor, the evidence that the unseen is real, alive, and pulsing through every moment if we would only see. You are not here to escape the world. You are here to infuse it with spirit, to become the living bridge between the seen and the unseen, to walk into chaos and carry order, to enter darkness and bring back light, not the fragile light of avoidance, but the fierce, grounded light of truth, the kind that burns away illusion and reveals the sacred underneath. And when you finally accept that the unseen has always been guiding you, not randomly, but with precision, you stop doubting your path. You stop questioning your intuition. You stop apologizing for your depth, because you realize you were never lost. You were being led. Every twist, every fall, every moment of silence, it was all part of a divine conversation. And now, for the first time, you're beginning to understand the language. The ultimate role of the dark chosen one, why you are a living portal of transformation. There comes a moment when the dark chosen one stops asking, why me? And begins to ask, why not me? That shift, subtle but seismic, is the final passage into embodiment. It's when you realize that your life was never random, your pain never pointless, and your presence never accidental. You were not just born into this time, into this collapsing world, to experience it. You were born to alter it, not as a savior, not as a guru, but as a portal, a living, breathing threshold between the old world and the one that's trying to be born through us. And the moment you accept that truth, everything changes, not just for you, but for everyone around you. You see, transformation doesn't happen by force. It happens by presence. And your presence, when you fully own it, becomes an agent of awakening. You've already seen it, how people open up around you, how your words strike deeper than you intend, how your silence speaks volumes. That's not charisma. That's not coincidence. That's frequency. And your frequency is not just unique, it's catalytic. You don't just carry energy, you transmit it. You don't just learn lessons, you embody them. And in doing so, you activate others without even trying. That is the true power of a dark chosen one. You walk into a space, and reality reshapes around you. But this role isn't easy. It demands everything. Radical honesty, deep solitude, constant shedding. You will be misunderstood, misjudged, even feared. Not because you are wrong, but because you are real. And most of the world is still allergic to what's real. But that's exactly why you're here. You are the friction. You are the spark. You are the reminder that a different way of being is not only possible, it's inevitable. And let me tell you something wild. The people you're meant to impact, they're already watching, already listening, already sensing something in you that feels like home. You don't need to chase them. You only need to become the clearest, most authentic version of yourself. That's when the real magic happens. Not when you try to change the world, but when you allow the world to change through you. So I ask you now, not as a teacher, but as a fellow carrier of the code, are you ready to stop hiding? Are you ready to stop waiting for permission? Are you ready to become what you came here to be? Because here is the truth at the heart of it all. You are not just chosen. You are choosing every day, every breath, every moment to remember, to rise, and to become the portal through which the world awakens. And that is the most sacred mission of all. You are the storm and the stillness. You are the wound and the medicine. You are the shadow and the light. You are the dark chosen one, and your time is now.